So today, Ryan Zinke, cabinet member for Donald Trump, comes out and goes, nah, drilling, we're gonna do it everywhere. We're gonna do it offshore, off the Atlantic, off the Pacific, in the Gulf Coast where we already had disasters, just everywhere you can imagine. In fact, let me read you the details. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke has proposed a sweeping new offshore drilling plan aimed at opening huge swaths of the Arctic, the Atlantic, and Pacific Oceans to oil exploration. The draft plan released Thursday includes 25 of 26 offshore planning areas and makes available for lease roughly 90% of the US outer continental shelf. In other words, have at it, Hoss. Drill anywhere you want. Right off the coast of Florida, tourism, fishing, all other things that people rely on. Who cares? Did you guys pay me? You're a small business. You run a hotel on the water, or you run a restaurant on the water. I don't care about you. You're not my donors. The fossil fuel industry, oil and gas, those guys are our donors, big time donors. We're gonna let them drill everywhere. Even the conservative Republican governors of South Carolina and Florida are like, no, don't do this. This is a really, really bad idea. They don't care. Last month, Interior also abruptly cut off funding for the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine to study offshore drilling in an effort to identify ways to avoid another disaster like Deepwater Horizon. Let that sink in for a second. They cut off the funding to study how do you prevent other disasters? If you're gonna drill, can we at least have scientists and engineers looking into how to prevent disasters? Nope, don't care. Just run wild. And if you spill into the ocean, who cares? Did the ocean give me a donation? No, it didn't. He's literally trying to turn our oceans into the swamps that he claimed he was against. There are no bounds with this guy. So this is the drilling, and it's an absolute disaster. Then you turn, that's the Interior Secretary. Then you turn to Scott Pruitt, who runs the Environmental Protection Agency. And I just want to give you guys a sense of what he's done over the last year. It fits into this story as a matter of how they deal with the environment. Within days of taking office, the Washington Post explains, Pruitt canceled the EPA's request that nearly 20,000 oil and gas companies gauge their emissions of methane, a potent greenhouse gas. Yeah, why would you want to measure methane? I mean, that is not only terrible for the environment and for climate change, but potentially toxic. Who cares? Let all the kids have methane. Great, we appreciate it. You know why they don't want to investigate any of this? Do you know why they keep firing the scientists? Because they're afraid of what they'll find. They're like, oh, now they're releasing methane. Now we got to do something about it, and it's going to cost my donors some money. I don't want it to cost money. I want them to be able to poison the environment any way they like. Just fire the scientists, be done with it. Okay, so the following month, he withdrew a proposed ban on a commonly used pesticide. Great, pesticide that might poison the food that we eat. Have at it, Hoss. And on Wednesday, a separate federal appeals court in California ordered the agency to quickly issue new standards to protect children from lead and paint, rejecting the Trump administration's position that a new rule on acceptable levels of exposure could take 6 years. You get that? So they had to do a rule on how do we get the lead out of the paint so the kids don't suffer lead poisoning, which stunts their growth and development and their mental capability forever. And by the way, makes people more violent too. And the Trump administration is like, I don't really want to study that. So I'm going to delay it for 6 years. Because if your kids get lead poisoning, what do I care? Are they my donors? Is your 6-year-old my donor? Don't care, okay? So all these toxic industries, they're my donors, I care. Your kids couldn't care less. But now the courts are making them do something about lead in the paint. Okay, now we got more. No longer would the EPA be second guessing, this is about a company in Michigan, DTE Energy's emission projections, they explained. Rather, it would accept the firm's intent to manage its pollution without requiring an enforceable agreement. So this is an example of, they take a particular company and they're saying, okay, you've got emission problems. So that's what the government said before. Should you fix it? They go, no, we're going to trust your intent without any enforcement that you guys will fix it at some point. Anyway, is the check in yet? Checks in? Great job, keep going. Okay, now let's go to their reaction for flooding and sea level rise. Obama signed an executive order in 2015 requiring that the federal government consider sea level rise and storm surge when designing infrastructure and building in flood-prone areas. Just days before Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, Trump signed an executive order revoking Obama's order. Oops. I mean, what's the chance that you'd have flooding in a major city? Oops. It happened days after. Does he care? Doesn't care. All he wants to do is work for his donors. 1 week after the camp at Standing Rock was clear, details of the Trump administration's proposed budget emerged, calling for a complete dismantling of the Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Environmental Justice. This is probably the least surprising. Environmental justice, poor people suffer the effects of lead poisoning, toxicity, poison in the water and in the air far more often. Trump's like, yeah, and I don't want it to go to rich people, I want to go to poor people. Disband it immediately. Okay, then in March, an EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt, suspended new chemical plant safety rules that would have helped prevent and mitigate accidents at petrochemical facilities and protect surrounding communities where residents are disproportionately low income and minority. I mean, chemical plant protection, why would you need that? No, disband it. That happened in March. On August 31st, a chemical plant in Crosby, Texas was rocked with explosions after being flooded by Hurricane Harvey. Why would you need safety at a chemical plant? How about that one that just exploded? Oops, yet another oops. But to them, it's not an oops. Mission accomplished. What do you mean? I lowered the costs for the industry. Oh, your local plant exploded, and by the way, cops got hurt there, first responders got hurt, and that all those chemicals went in the air, all the families that live nearby got hurt. Who cares? They're not Trump's donors. Just keep deregulating. This is what deregulating means. You know what regulations are? They're rules, they're laws meant to protect you. It doesn't mean they're all perfect, but overall the idea is to protect your families. And Trump is saying, no, we're not gonna do that. All we're gonna do is protect business interests. All right, we're getting near the end here. The Trump, and it is an exhausting list of things that they have deregulated and allowed to poison us. The Trump administration halted a Mountaintop Mining health risk study by the National Academy of Sciences in August. West Virginia officials had asked for the study after scientists described increased risks of cancer and birth defects near surface coal mining operations. And Pruitt and Trump were like, yeah, but I don't live in West Virginia. So that's increased cancer risk for you. And the coal mining industry gave me money. They gave me campaign contributions. Your kids with the increased cancer, they didn't give me anything. So I won't even let you study it. If you get the cancer, I'd rather not find out. Now, one last thing for you guys in terms of what Scott Pruitt's priorities are at the EPA. Get a load of who he's met with, and it might give you a sense of what he values. He has met with, as you see on the left there, environmental and public health groups 12 times since he's been in office. Now you should meet with those guys, and by the way, you should meet with business interests as well. You should weigh all that and balance it and figure out what the right amount of regulation is. So he's met with those guys 12 times. As you can see in the middle, he's met with the fossil fuel industry and agriculture and other industries 218 times. Gee, I wonder where his priorities lie. I can't quite tell. I mean, look, if you said to me, a Democratic administration is not meeting with industry enough, and then it should be even. I don't know that it should be even. I think that the job of the EPA is to protect us, that we're their constituents, not those corporations. But if you said, hey, make it even, meet with the public health groups and the environmental groups and the scientists as much as you meet with industry, I'd say, okay, that's fine, nothing wrong with that. But to flip it on its head and meet with all the businesses that have donated to you 218 times and meet with people who actually want to protect the environment 12 times. You know that Scott Pruitt goes around the country. He brags that he's been in 30 states already. EPA has 10 regional offices. You know how many of the regional offices he stepped into? 0. Because he doesn't care. He's going to meet with donors. He doesn't go into the regional offices because he doesn't want them to do the work. He wants to shut them down. If you thought Trump was going to be a disaster for the environment, it was a gross understatement. Just a debacle in every imaginable way. So we've now set the clock back 4 years, not just on climate change and addressing it, but into literally our pollution in our air, in our water, and cancer, and lead poisoning, and methane, and all of these things. And now on top of that, Zinke comes in today and says, by the way, we're also going to ruin the oceans. I told you to brace for impact, and here it is. This is impact. You just watched a video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.